Welcome to the Groove Pod, where two cousins and lovers of music explore their journeys through audio and listening to music, and specifically explore whether or not it's worth going down the path of vinyl in this digital age. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, Nick. Welcome back to what are we called again? The pod, the Groove Pod.
The Groove Pod.
One day I'm going to remember.
The Groove Pod.
Because we were for people that are wondering why on earth it's so hard for us to to remember that.
It's because we're old men.
There's that too.
And all the amphetamines.
The original plan was this was going to be In the Groove. And
In the Groove, yep.
We got all excited about that, and then I went and did the search to create
700 podcasts called
In the Groove. Yeah,
there
were so many called In the Groove. So we did a quick flip to the Groove Pod, but my brain apparently hasn't caught up. And as Nick said, maybe it's the amphetamines. No, that's not the case. We do not support or endorse doing drugs on this podcast.
Yes.
So let's
you
talk
can
about
cut
audio.
that bit out if you need to.
Yeah, that's it. Let's talk about audio stuff. Let me kick off with a general bit that I think is going to be interesting for a lot of people, and then you're going to take us on a bit more of a deep dive into something later on, Nick. So I had the review of the FIO TT13 turntable a while back, which was essentially FIO's equivalent to your Audio-Technica turntable, Nick.
Well, and just quickly, why you said that before, that it's the equivalent to my Audio-Technica. Mm-hmm. Is that just based on price point? How do you make that assessment? Yeah, good question.
So part of it's because of price, and I haven't seen the exact price of the Audio-Technica, but I know that they're both kind of good quality, what I would call entry level, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like you can spend thousands of dollars on a turntable, but these guys are a couple $100 US dollars. So they're the sort of thing that somebody who's getting into it for the first time or getting back into it can go out and buy. But the other reason I say that it's the equivalent is because it's also a standalone. So you can buy it and you can plug it into anything you like, and it's going to work. There's differences, like the FIO one doesn't have the USB output that yours has. It also, thankfully, has RCA sockets, not the RCA cable, as we spoke about last episode. So there are some differences, but it's a good quality entry-level turntable for somebody that wants to have a bit of a dabble. And coincidentally, it also uses an Audio-Technica needle or cartridge, which is probably the same one used on yours, I would guess, if we dug into the numbers, which I don't think we need to, but if we dug into the specs and the product codes, it's probably the same one. So that, for me, how that came up was that FIO reached out to me and said, hey, we've got this turntable, are you interested? And I'd always said I was never going to do anything vinyl on the channel. But when I looked at it, the fact that it was affordable and the fact that it was a plug and play unit where I didn't need a phono amplifier, like a separate box, I could just literally grab it, plug it into the existing headphone and speaker setups that I had and go for it. I thought, yeah, let's give it a go. And another part of me thought this might really go off on the channel because I know that there's a strong enthusiast group around vinyl. For reference, just to close off that loop, it didn't go that well on the channel. Like, it was fine, but it wasn't more popular than other stuff, which we'll get to in a second. What is more popular, because it's related. What the conclusion, I'm not going to go through with the ins and the outs of the review. That's on the YouTube channel for those that want to see it, which is Passion for Sound, if you're not familiar. I won't go into the details of the actual video here, but my conclusions, without giving too much away, my conclusions about vinyl is more what I want to talk to you about. And we've touched on this earlier. When I went through the process, the sheer cost of buying the vinyl and the quality variance of that vinyl. So I bought, and we've talked about these on the channel before, on the podcast before, so I won't labour the point. But I bought Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. Mm-hmm. I bought Led Zeppelin's fourth album, the Untitled album, mm-hmm. which is the one with the guy with the bundle of sticks on his back, the painting on the wall on the cover.
Yep.
I bought
Bernard Fanning
by Sympathy by Bernard Fanning. Or was it only three? No, I bought three, and I already had two others. I had two others already. And the Tea and Sympathy album and the Led Zeppelin album were both noticeably inferior to local FLAC files that I had ripped from the CDs or from streamed audio from Cobras or Tidal. And I'm not even talking high-res versus vinyl. I'm talking regular CD quality versus vinyl. And and I'm also talking about using comparable quality devices. So it's not like I was feeding the local files through $1 million system and using a $250 turntable. Both setups, the turntable was running into the exact same amplifier and headphone amp that I was using to play the audio files from the computer through to. And where it really left me was that whilst I appreciate the ritual of unpacking the album and putting it on the player, I could just never see myself going out and spending the extra money to buy the vinyl album. But the pivot that I wanted to throw in here, and I'm interested in your take on this, Nick, as well. The thing that really stood out to me was I have also just recently reviewed the FiiO DM13 portable CD player.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, was something I could get behind more. I can imagine myself, I mean, I'm probably not going to because of the way I'm set up these days. Streaming is just easier. But if my life was set up a bit differently, if I had a dedicated listening space out in the house with the family, I could see myself having a CD collection out there for those very deliberate, like, I'm going to go and put on an album to listen to type moments. I couldn't really see myself getting the vinyl set up that way, even though my 5-year-old Xander, or I say 5, he's almost 5-year-old Xander, he loved the experience of the vinyl. Like, it was a real adventure for him to see all that work. So that was my conclusion, was I get the appeal. Having played with it properly now, though, on a decent entry-level turntable that produced good sound, like Kind of Blue sounded wonderful through it because it was a good recording and a good pressing on a decent system, but I still found myself coming back to CDs or streaming and CDs if I wanted that more deliberate listening approach. And I was curious, Nick, do you still do CDs at all? Have you got any?
I still have all my CDs. I really haven't gotten rid of any, but they are in plastic crates in the garage.
We talked about that, yeah.
And I have gone and dug out a few that are very specific albums that I can't find on streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a combination of more sort of indie, not super popular, maybe Aussie artists that just like never...
Skunk Hour, or actually Skunk Hour's on there now. But...
Oh, are they? I was going to say Skunk Hour is exactly one of the bands that I have the CDs dug out of, but maybe they are on streaming now. At the time they weren't. And I was like, I know I've got these albums. I climbed up into the garage and found the box. So there was that, although sounds like I don't need my Skunk Hour CDs anymore.
No. Well, maybe you might need some of them. I know that Skunk... actually, am I lying to you? I might be lying to you here.
Two of my Skunk Hour CDs are signed by some members of the band, so I'll be keeping those because of their collector quality, or at least their nostalgic quality, and also some cool mixed CDs or some mixed albums. So, do you remember? And it's not on Spotify. It might be on other platforms, but Dimitri from Paris presents a night at the Playboy Mansion.
Yes, and you can't get that anywhere on streaming.
You can't? Tidal. Okay, great.
It's not on Tidal or Cobras. No.
Great.
You can find the individual tracks.
Yes,
so, like,
but that doesn't...
For instance, Talking All That Jazz is part of that, and I found the original recording of Talking All That Jazz on its own separately.
Stetsasonic, right?
Yes. So that is available separately, but it's not the same. Dimitri. It's not the same.
So Dimitri, whoever this Dimitri is, Dimitri, give us, call in, like and subscribe. We'd like to hear from you.
And I have an email address, and I have an email address for us, and we're going to share our Blue Sky addresses later on. But we'll get to
Dimitri from Paris.
But if he wants to, I just figured he needs a way to get in touch with us, so that can be it.
We'll come back to for the podcast, for our podcast.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you were just saying I have Dimitri from Paris's email. And we're gonna bring him on the show, but it would be good to get him on the show. So quick rabbit hole. So Dimitri from Paris. Maybe you, me, and like 9 other Australians know what this is. But there's this album that came out. It was a pre-mixed CD, right? So the tracks are mixed by the DJ. They blend together. It's awesome. It was called Dimitri from Paris presents a night at the Playboy Mansion. It was huge in Australia. I'm not sure if it broke it anywhere else. And there was this one track on there that was a real standout, which was Talking All That Jazz by Stetsasonic. Now, I got obsessed with Stetsasonic because I wanted to know more about this band and this track, and I got all of their albums that I could find. Initially, it was just digitally. I was just downloading MP3s, and then I was finding the whole album rips, and then I was finding the physical at CDs, and then I went and ripped them myself. I cannot for the life of me recreate that track. If I ignore the in and out where it's blending from the previous track to the next one, I cannot find that mix. I reckon this Dimitri from Paris bloke either somehow got access to the original mix or the original master to create his version of the track, or he rebuilt it himself, or he sort of had like the a cappella and something else, and then he just he I cannot work it out, and it has driven me crazy. So if anyone I haven't thought about this in 20 years, but if anyone knows the answer to where do you get the track of Talking All That Jazz that was mixed together, I want to know. Anyway, so that's one example. And then a bunch of other like fun things like the Ministry of Sound and Gatecrasher and Wild FM, all those fun things and then a couple of other like obscure. Do you remember back when we were kids, there was a store in Australia, a chain called Brash's?
Oh, yep. I remember Brash as well.
Did you ever work at Brash's? No,
I never worked there.
No,
I used to frequent it at one stage.
So I think they had their own, I think at one point they were doing their own compilation CDs of, like, they were obviously partnering with an EMI or a Mushroom or a Sony or something, and they were putting out their own compilations. And they had, I'll get it wrong, but it was called something, it might have been called like Brash's Presents or Brash's Delivers or something. And there was a different genre. And there was a blues one and a rock one. And there's this fantastic blues compilation series that they did. And all of those tracks are available individually, but I just loved the way that I loved the way the collection was put together. And so I still have that CD and I still put it on every now and then. But that's a very long answer to your question of I very rarely put CDs on unless it's something very, very specific that just literally isn't available to stream. But I've kept them all because, maybe, who knows, when the apocalypse comes and, we lose, the internet's gone or whatever, I'll fire up the generator and be able to play a CD and listen to it.
You'll be like Denzel Washington in the Book of Eli with you. You'll be using a Discman and you'll find an old battered up Discman and you'll have your CD collection ready to go.
Oh my gosh, I've seen that movie, but I have no recollection of that scene. But I believe you.
Well, he has an old iPod, and I remember one of the scenes he walks into town and he goes into a shop to ask the guy if the guy can charge the iPod for him because there's no power, so there's limited solutions for charging an iPod. So I just had visions of you in the apocalypse with your Discman, your battered Discman that you found somewhere.
I still have my Discman. I have my Sony Discman, like sitting right here. I got. I remember I got a really, really good one. Which I still have. Maybe I should, do something with that. Anyway, what are we talking about? I'm distracted. It's easy to add too when we're talking about audio and all the rabbit holes that it brings. So no, we're just talking about the vinyl versus CD versus streaming thing. And I'm also conscious that we've kind of covered this ground a lot on this podcast already, but I think it's a really interesting one that I certainly grapple with because there's a pull and a lure towards the physical media, but I personally, in my life as it is right now, it's not enough to take me away from the sheer convenience of streaming, and particularly when the sound quality was disappointing for me because I did no research and I got unlucky. The 3 records I bought, only one of them I would have actually wanted to regularly listen to because of that. It's interesting. I've been thinking about your 3 records that you bought and the experience that you had, and I'm not surprised about the Bernard Fanning one because I can't imagine that when Bernard went into the recording studio to create that album, and even when whoever was whether it was him or someone in his team or the record label said let's do a vinyl release, I can't imagine any of that music was created with vinyl as the priority. Or vinyl listening experience as the priority. So I'm not surprised by that one at all. I was surprised about Led Zeppelin because and it wasn't until you got that album and we started talking about it, I started to read a bit more about it. And apparently, the way that it was mastered or recorded, or I'm not sure, but there is a lot of literature out there that talks about how Led Zeppelin was not the best medium really for consuming them is not vinyl. It's actually it's all the remasters that are now available digitally because they went right back to the source and they cleaned them up and they spent a lot of time and energy, recreating the sound and the experience, and digital is far superior in that regard. I didn't know that at the time, but I can understand that now. But the Miles Davis one is where I want to come back to, because I think that back in those days, when Miles Davis was recording that album, vinyl was the it. And yes, they were recording it with the best possible equipment and the best possible experience for listeners and for the artists. And so I feel like in theory, Zeppelin should have been that as well. But the Miles Davis one, for me, if I'm going to play Miles Davis at home, I'm probably going to put the vinyl record on.
Okay.
Partly because I feel like it's apropos from when the music was created and what medium it was created for. But also the ritual part of it, to me, they come together in a way that I really enjoy and that makes sense. I would have thought Led Zeppelin was also in that same category. And had I not learned from the little rabbit hole we went down that apparently a lot of the Zeppelin pressings and masterings weren't great on vinyl, I would have thought Zeppelin would be in the same category, but I now know that they're not. But I still would put Led Zeppelin records on because they're fun. But yeah, that's how I now think of physical media and how I think of vinyl. Is there a reason to put it on because the artist has specifically created it for that medium? And that could be true for a modern artist too, right? Who wants to go back and do that? Is there a ritual component to it, which is fun? Or is this sort of also indicative of how the art was designed to be enjoyed? And that's probably going to be more true for older music. Yep. Does that put a pin in it? Like, is that a good sort of conclusion?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think obviously everyone's going to make up their own mind on that, because in my head I'm going along now thinking, so if you're going to go down the path of vinyl, do you do it based on eras? Do you buy only records from the era where they were recording and mixing and mastering for analog playback, mostly obviously therefore vinyl playback? Is that a good way for people to think about it? Or in your experience, have you got more new production albums that if you choose them well, they can still be an outstanding experience?
Most of the records that I have are secondhand records that I've bought off Discogs, or I've gotten from a record store that specifically sells secondhand records.
And are they of an era of analog based recording?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, mostly. There is some crossover. So one of the cool things, so I live in the US in Seattle on the West Coast. I think I may have mentioned this already, but one of the cool things why I got into vinyl is actually because I realized that Australian artists, I can get my favorite Australian artists on vinyl, secondhand for pennies here in America, because no one remembers or knows really who Icehouse is. But Icehouse actually had a really big release. I can get a pristine copy of Man of Colours for like $4. And I have a couple of them because, I don't think the same is true in Australia. I think if you're in Australia and you're into music and maybe even into vinyl and you want to go get a really good quality secondhand copy of Man of Colours, like I don't think you're paying $4 for it.
Yeah.
But the supply and demand over here is very different. And so most of the albums, most of the records that I have are secondhand and they are older. And I think that the majority of them would have been recorded when the primary medium that they were planning for was vinyl.
And I think that's a really good point. That changes the whole equation, because for me, it was all about if I'm spending that much more money, because for me, buying new albums, or from what you've said, if I'm buying albums that are popular in Australia and therefore still priced accordingly, I'm spending a lot more than I would on a CD. Or I'm spending a lot more than I would on a subscription to a Cobras or a Tidal. Yep. And that was the tipping point for me. But that makes a lot of sense. If you can get the vinyl at a good price, then obviously it changes the whole equation, and it becomes more about preferences and less about are you getting value for money, because it's no longer,
I'm in pursuit of an experience.
Yes.
I'm not in pursuit of an audiophile, a level of audiophile sort of fidelity.
Yes.
I want that as well, but primarily vinyl for me is in pursuit of an experience, and there is a sort of a collector's not collecting for the sake of collecting, but I'm not like, I love Hunters and Collectors, the band Hunters and Collectors, so I am trying and Cold Chisel and Icehouse, and so I am going intentionally to get all of their albums on vinyl in sort of a as good a quality as I can, without necessarily paying in crazy amounts of money for some unsealed dead stock thing that was ultra rare first pressing. Like, I don't care about that, but I want to have all of their albums. I'd love to have them on vinyl, because I think for a lot of those artists, most of that music was recorded for vinyl, or vinyl was really thought of as the primary. Maybe not Hunters and Collectors; they're a bit newer, but anyway.
But even then, that's an interesting point, because vinyl was really the primary medium all the way up until the very early 90s or very late 80s, I think.
Definitely late 80s in Australia.
For a while, there was a dual CD vinyl release that I reckon must have gone at least until about 1990 before CDs really became the predominant medium for people to be buying. So, yeah, when you put it that way, it does take you a long way through the back catalogue, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Yeah, so there you go. So while I do have a lot of new things, new records, like I bought Janelle Monáe. I have her. Oh gosh, I need to look up the correct name. Not Metropolis. Is it called Metropolis?
I know the name Janelle Monáe, and I can't picture in my head where I know the name from, what the song is that I know of hers. I just know that I know the name.
The Arch Android.
Android.
It's actually her debut album. But it was remastered and re-released on vinyl, and I thought I'll give this a go. Like, I love the album. I have it on CD. I listen to it on streaming. But that was one where I thought I want to try it on vinyl and see what it feels like. Another reason why that's actually an interesting example is a lot of the tracks blend together. So
the whole gapless playback thing.
Yeah, and I feel like gapless playback and vinyl go hand in hand, right? Given just the way that the physical medium works. And I often find, like, gapless playback on digital sometimes doesn't quite work. Like,
yeah, I agree.
You can sometimes just hear the tiniest, slightest pause or gap, and it really throws you. And so in that album in particular, there are some songs that blend together, and it's a great experience on vinyl. I certainly haven't A/B tested the two of them for sort of fidelity, but
but I think, as you say, when you're looking for the experience, when that's your predominant focus, and this is something I talk to people about a lot on the channel, in the comments and stuff like that. Whilst I respect those that do want to pursue the absolute fidelity in sound, and that can be a fun hobby in itself. For me, and I think something I try to remind people of sometimes, is that we get into this for the music, and if we lose sight of that, if we stop making the music and the experience of the music the priority, I feel like the hobby loses its fun. All of a sudden, it becomes about this soulless pursuit of technical prowess in the gear, and not the enjoyment of the art, which is what I got into it for in the first place. And I think you can hit a point with any medium. You can hit a point where the sound is good enough that you can thoroughly enjoy anything and everything you listen to on it. And that, to me, should be the pursuit first and foremost. And again, if people want to do it differently, that's fine. I'm not judging them for it. But for me, the pursuit is getting it to the level that you're going to enjoy the music, rather than focusing necessarily on, is this exactly how it's meant to be reproduced? Does it matter? Are you having fun? Actually, on that note, I just did a review. It's not in front of me to hold up. Not that people can see it when I'm on the podcast, but I was going to show you, Nick. I just did a review of a really cheap little DAC and speaker amp. It's $130. from Fozzy Audio. It's got tubes. It's got a DAC built in. And I haven't released it yet, Nick, if you're looking for it. And it's just fun. And what I said in the video is I am sure that even within Fozzy Audio's range, there will be amplifiers costing $100 more that probably are technically more technically more capable. But this little tube-based DAC and speaker amp was just fun. It was just easy to enjoy. And it really reminded me that sometimes that's all you need is, buy a pair of speakers and this $130 amp, and you're going to have a good time. Whereas you could spend $300 on some other amps and it's going to suck the soul and the life out of the music because it's more about chasing the technicalities and it's less about just delivering a fun and engaging sound. And I think that's an important consideration for those that are pursuing enjoyment rather than pursuing technical perfection.
And one more thing I'll add to that, just I'll say in the vinyl camp for me, is when I choose to put on a piece of music, whether it's from my fiancée Sally or friends, when I'm putting on music for someone else, I have noticed that when it's me going to the shelf and selecting a record, and specifically a record, not a CD, obviously versus digital, but like when I'm going and selecting a physical medium and I'm taking it out and I'm giving it a little clean and I'm putting it on and it starts that when I'm picking music to play for someone else as well, like to show it to them, it's a different response and it's a different experience. And I there's a big difference between yelling, "Hey Siri, hey Google, hey whoever, play whatever," right? Like, there's. I was wondering if I was going to trigger your phone.
Sorry
I
to
love
everybody
walking into.
I
love walking into people's houses and just saying, "Hey Siri, play 'Let the Bodies Hit the Floor," and just see what happens.
I got completely distracted then by my Google Assistant going off at your comments. So you're saying that it's more that choice.
Oh my god, my phone's doing it now. Oh man!
So you're saying that you find the process of choosing the album is more, because I lost you somewhere. I lost the train of thought when Google went off.
No, it's fine. No, and it gives me a chance to sort of hopefully refine this a little bit. So when I say to Sally, that's my fiance, when I say, "Hey, I want to put a piece of music on for you.
I want to pick a pickle peppers.
I want to put a piece of music on for you." If I just go to my phone and just silently tap this little piece of glass in my hand and music starts playing, that's fine. That's great. But if I stand up and have to walk, to the other side of the room and go to the record collection and choose one out and go through those motions, I keep going back to the word ritual, but those physical motions of my body that I have to go and do, and then putting this piece of vinyl on the record player and putting the arm down and turning all the knobs and that kind of stuff, that actually elicits a different response, and I think it's a better response. I think it's I think it facilitates a bit more of a connection, or maybe it's more about paying just a tiny bit more attention because you've gone through more steps, more deliberate action in order to bring to your partner, your friends, your family, a piece of art, an experience that you want to share with them. And I think that in and of itself is a really interesting part of the experience and potentially something worth thinking about.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because you're choosing to invest in that album at the moment that you're putting it on, with the effort, the time, etc. And effort sounds silly; it's so easy to do, but compared to tapping on a phone or calling out to an assistant, an AI assistant, it is a more of a deliberate investment that makes a lot of sense. So I'm just trying to think. You were going to take us through something a bit more technical as well, Nick. But I wonder if we hold that for episode 7. Are we up to 6? And talk about that there. Is there anything else you want to throw into this episode and the conversation around CDs versus vinyl versus streaming? Actually, there's something I should add in. I've got a video coming up on the channel because one of the things I often have come up in this conversation around CDs or vinyl versus streaming is, oh yeah, but we want the artists to get paid. And that's a really interesting one. I did a bit of a deep dive and did the numbers, and I'm going to hold back the details until the video comes out so people can go and see all of the ins and outs of it, and it's a bigger conversation than I can have here. But what I will say is that I think the argument that the artist receives more money if you buy the physical copy doesn't really stack up. I think both are great, is where I'm coming from. They actually do get paid either way. Ironically, they probably don't get paid if you're buying secondhand albums, but
that's true.
That is a thing, and I'm not saying it's wrong to do it, because hopefully when you buy a secondhand album from somebody, the person who originally bought that album now has more money to go and buy another album, so a new artist gets paid in a different way. So I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't be buying secondhand albums. But yeah, it was interesting, and the key takeaway from all the research I did is that whilst artists get paid differently and there are pros and cons in each direction, I don't believe there is a reason that you should choose one over the other because you want the artist to get paid. Choose the one that works for you. The best thing you can do is listen to music so the artist gets paid, assuming you're not pirating the music. Whatever proper approach you're taking to get your hands on the music is the best one, because any of those done properly, the artist is getting paid, and that's all that matters. So that's one that's worth probably checking out the video on that one just to see the numbers for those that are interested. I think it's scheduled. It's still a while off yet. If anyone's keen, that one comes out on the 1st of May. That one comes out. For
which one? Sorry, what?
The one about the breakdown of the numbers of how artists get paid and is vinyl or CD or streaming better. That comes out 1st of May. Depending on the time zone you're in, it varies a little bit, but that's roughly when it's coming out on YouTube over on Passion for Sound. So I just wanted to throw that in. But any other thoughts you had, Nick, around the topic, or are we done on the topic?
Two quick thoughts. One is a little controversial, but I just feel it's worth bringing up. And you talked about just listen to music, as long as you're not pirating it. And I'm not, just for the record and for any for posterity here, like I'm certainly not advocating for piracy. With a caveat. The caveat being that when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, there were no streaming. There was no streaming audio. There was no streaming services. You had to go and buy CDs. Now, I worked in a CD shop and I loved CDs and I bought a lot of CDs. But often the way that I found new music was through, ultimately through pirated music.
Yep.
I would be online and someone would send me an MP3, or someone would say, listen to this music, or this is really cool. Here's how you can download their album. And I knew I was not ignorant enough to I can't say that I was ignorant. I didn't realize it was, no, I knew how it was working and that I was ultimately not buying that music. However, I don't know if I am in the minority, and we'll never know this, but I often wonder, have I given back more to artists through the way that I have discovered their music versus taking money from them because it was discovered through piracy.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating for it. That's very, very clear. But I do often think about it, especially for people of our generation, my generation, where streaming services didn't exist. And so there was no way to go and listen where ad revenue from your listen was going to ultimately help tick over and pay the artist for that listen that you were consuming. So I do think about that. But I love that your guidance here is just go and listen to the music. And really, I think the best thing you can do is when your band that you like comes to town, go see them, go buy a ticket,
good point.
Buy some merch. Seeing a band live and buying a T-shirt or a sticker or a tote bag or something like that is a really good way also to support.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Especially less popular sort of up and coming bands too. I think they really rely on that. So that was one thing that I wanted to add. The second thing I wanted to add, I just forgot, and it was going to be really good, but it's no, I remember. Okay,
what slips away?
CDs. I have 10 to 20 plastic tubs of CDs in my garage. I am very nervous that they're starting to rot. I haven't seen the evidence of it, but I'm worried that the next time I go and open the box, it'll just be a disintegrated pile of plastic and paper inserts.
Or you'll have these beautiful plastic discs with weird fungal things growing through the silver reflective part.
Yeah. And so I wondered if you, Locke, have any tips, advice, thoughts on the best way to store CDs, and or, is it, should I just plan, should I just assume that at some point they are going to deteriorate, and therefore it is important that I do rip them to some sort of lossless audio format, and then really just keep the disc more for nostalgia as opposed to a sort of an archival medium?
Yeah, I haven't delved into this in any depth, so none of what I'm about to say is in any way expert or based on research. My view of it is that CDs are generally, as long as you keep them out of extreme environmental conditions like heat being probably the biggest risk, they should be somewhat similar to an archival medium where they should last for a long time if there's not heat or maybe moisture issues. However, I have had some, and actually I think it was DVDs that I had, where I went to play them one day and there was this weird, it looked
bubbling.
like, yeah, I don't know, it wasn't really bubbling, it was the internal, I think it was heat, probably from sun shining down onto the rack where I used to keep them. So, DVDs and CDs are obviously similar manufacturing despite having different internal coatings and patterns of and densities of how they encode the data. But my lesson from that was heat is probably the killer, and therefore try to keep them not in a really hot environment. Obviously, I think if the whole disc heats and cools similarly, and it's, like I've got mine in tubs in the garage as well, if it's cycling up and down between 35 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius, which in your world is a bit over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, if it's going up to that and down to freezing or whatever, I don't think that's going to kill it if they're all in a tub. I think it's more if part of the disc heats up in direct sunlight while the other part doesn't. I think things like that seem to be the issue from just my own experiences. But I do believe that the best thing you can do is to rip them all to a hard drive. And then also to do a backup of that hard drive, because I've had, and I still haven't got to the bottom of this. I've had hard drives fail, but also I have had tracks get corrupted, which theoretically shouldn't happen, where I've ripped it to a disk and then I go back and it's like half a second of the track, it just skips and it's the file somewhere has gotten corrupted. And so these days I'm always kind of, every now and again I find a disk that I've got to go back and re-rip.
Is that do you find that's only with MP3 or also with FLAC?
No, with FLAC. And I think what's happened is I think the library management software that I used to use has caused a problem. I don't know how it's caused a problem, if somehow in writing the metadata into the tag of the file, or if it was relocating it on my disk, it didn't do it properly. I don't know the cause. But I reckon I probably have to replace a disk every month or 2 months. I find another one. I'm like, that one's, I've got to go re-rip that one or find a solution. So that's the one time I will sometimes download a copy from somewhere to replace a disk that I own, basically, rather than having to go through the garage and find it and re-rip it. Obviously, if I didn't own the disc already, I would be going and buying it. But these are for things that I already own, and it's just a corruption issue that I'm replacing the data. So yeah, they're the only examples I've had of CDs failing is the data getting corrupted or heat issue. But at some point, I would imagine CDs will fail. Hopefully, it won't be within our lifetime, but if they're kept well, but I don't know yet.
Yes, and then the challenge I have right now is that I don't have a computer with a CD-ROM or a DVD-ROM, or with no optical media at all. So I would need to go again external.
Computers do, yeah. So it's external, like Pioneer. I don't know if they still make it. I've got a portable Pioneer DVD. I don't know if it's a DVD and Blu-ray or whatever it is, but it's a plug-in USB drive. So I just pull that out when I need to rip a CD, plug it into the USB socket, rip the CD, and then pack it all away again. That's about the only way. There's also some of the new CD players and transports on the market will also rip discs for you. And even some of the streaming devices, and I think we're probably going to talk about these in the next episode, Nick. We're going to talk a bit about streamers and stuff like that in relation to your USB socket on your amplifier. Some of the new streamers will either let you plug in an external CD drive, like the one I mentioned before, or some of them even have integrated CD drives, so you can rip your music directly on those into the hard drive of the streaming music network server thing. So there's definitely solutions out there, but yeah, I haven't seen a computer for years now that had a CD drive built in. Not even laptops, which once upon a time that was the saving grace. Your desktop computer stopped having them, but you could always get it on your laptop. But that's long gone these days.
And then I think the next question is, I'm as you're talking, I'm looking on Amazon here, which is my sort of go-to marketplace for a CD or a DVD player for the computer, and mm-hmm. I'm only really seeing external options, but they're all those bizarre brand names that look like they're just a random vomit of consonants. And it's like, well, maybe it's okay, but the Riodelax doesn't fill me with confidence.
No.
Like I would like one of the, I would like Pioneer, please.
Yes.
Or, I'd go with LG or Samsung, like, one of those established companies that also own like a bunch of patents and developed a bunch of patents in this space here, as opposed to I don't even say this. Crinkletech. No, it's not even tech. It's like Crinklex. Anyway,
the funny thing though is a lot of those brands that make those random like jumble of letters names. A lot of those actually are the companies or the factories that make the products that are sold by Samsung, LG, Pioneer. They're the same brand. They come up with these products with horrendous names. Some brand comes along and finds them and goes, "That's actually a good product. Take your brand off it, put our brand on it, please, and we'll start selling it for you."
Ormandy. The rest of this podcast is me just going to be reading these. Nolaneth.
Do you think they have a random? Do they just have a random letter generator that they just go, name this?
So someone told me. So it's probably not true, but someone told me that there is. I believe. If I'm wrong, please. I want to know that I'm wrong here. I certainly don't want to be.
And I'll give our email address at the end of this bit so people can email in.
Well, someone told me that when these companies that are in mainland China and they're looking to sell their company, that they have to apply, I guess, for like an export license or something like that from the central government, and that to make it easier, they literally just get assigned a name. They get assigned essentially a brand to go and trade under. So it's not like someone is some sort of CEO or business development person is optical clop. Like that's not, no one wants that brand, but that's as they're applying for some sort of trade permission, they're essentially given that, and they're like, this is your brand, and apparently too, there's also maybe some sort of LLM AI at work here that is ensuring that there is enough differentiation in these different brands that they're creating, so that it doesn't encroach on an existing brand, and also gives them enough sort of space so that they'll sort of be separate from what is already there. That could all be untrue, but two different people told me those two bits.
Yeah, if you know more about what Nick just explained about the names of Chinese technology companies,
and I should say we're assuming that it's from China. It may be from another company,
but
that's
the assumption. Bet, that one, I think.
Or if you work at Origibly, please let us know.
So our email address, you can now contact us with complaints.
Is origibly at...
So send all your complaints or insights to askthegroovepod at gmail.com. So it's ASK, the groovepod, askthegroovepod at gmail.com. And we will check and hopefully answer either on the podcast or via email if it's more appropriate. And I think we might wrap this one up there, but to let people know what's coming next time, Nick's going to tell us a bit more about what he's discovered about different types of cartridges or needles. And we said something else we were going to talk about that's already slipped my mind from this episode. I don't even know what it was. But
two things. So for me, so I have on the back of my Dayton Audio HT 100, or what it's called, I have a USB. I believe it's called USB A, but it's not like the rectangular one. It's the one that you would normally see on the big chunky one that you would normally see on the back of a scanner or maybe your printer.
That's USB B.
Well, that's B, is it? Okay, yep. So that's B. And it's this is a relatively compact little amplifier, so I've run out of inputs, and so I'm trying to work out how can I use this. It's a DAC, and it has a USB port. And the thing I've been looking at is, can I build? And I have in my hot little hands here, I have a Raspberry Pi 3 that I never really, I had grand plans for and never really sort of worked. But there are a bunch of projects out there that allow you to create a sort of DIY streamer with a Raspberry Pi.
Yes.
Now, the 3 is kind of old, but that's what I want to talk to you about, for how I might utilize that port, which will also free up my auxiliary line in for my vinyl. But
beautiful.
That's one thing to talk about.
Cool. So that was the second thing. So we're going to talk about what you can do with that USB-B socket or USB-C socket for other people's devices, depending on what it is, but a USB input on the back of an amplifier, etc. And we're going to talk about needles/cartridges. And I wonder if at some stage we need to, elephant in the world, talk about tariffs and the impact of tariffs on all this stuff.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Because it could completely change the landscape of audio. Like your Dayton amp is probably a Chinese amplifier, I'm guessing.
I think so, yep.
So what does it mean? I know FIO, who make the TT13 we spoke about earlier, have issued a formal statement that when they sell out of the stock that they currently have in the US, they may be putting a pause on all future product until they know what's going on in the world, because the tariffs are on and then they're off and then they're changed. So any company that's operating from a country that is affected by tariffs or is using parts that are coming from those countries is really in a difficult spot with the turbulence of it all. So it might be an interesting thing for us to touch on and dabble on in a future episode, whether it's next episode or the one after. So if people have any interesting thoughts or questions on that they want us to discuss, again, let's give that email a work out, askthegroovepod@gmail.com, because I think it could be an interesting topic for future conversation and to keep our eyes on.
And before we go, do you have some music to share with me? Because I have some music to share with you.
Oh, okay. Do I? I do, actually. You go first this time, because I went first last time and then you didn't have much time at the end. So you go first.
I was initially going to think that when we share music with each other, it has to be new. And I was like, no, it doesn't have to be new.
It's got to be something that you might not have otherwise heard.
It's just new to us.
Yeah.
I stumbled upon, I've known about this bass player called Richard Bonner, Bona. He's fantastic. I don't know a lot about him, but I really like him and I like his music, and I need to sort of get into that a bit more. He formed, it might just be a one-off, but he formed up with two other artists, Gerald Toto and Lakua Kanza. And in 2018, they released this album called Bondeko, 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 under basically their three names sort of merged together. So it's under Toto Bona Lukua.
Got it.
The album's called Bondeko. Tons of fun. Fantastic. Okay. Really enjoy it. So that's one that I would recommend listening to.
I think you had a second one on the way before you were cut off.
I've got three more, and I'm just going to throw them at you really quickly. There's a fun sort of, I think they're referred to as maybe post-punk band out of Dublin, Ireland, called Fontaines DC. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Fontaines
D period C period. I don't know what the DC stands for, but very cool. Really liked it. Sort of almost like I was gonna say Joy Division. So it's not punk in the sense of, you know, when you think of sort of punk music, but it's sort of got that edge / new wave sort of to it, which I thought was really cool.
Interesting. A particular album that you'd recommend people starting with?
So I've only listened to it might be their first album. Let me have a look. No, actually, it's from 2024 called Romance.
Romance. All right, I'm going to add that to my Discovery
So that's
playlist.
what I was listening to. I thought that was a ton of fun. I really liked that. And then another artist, and I've only listened to 2 songs, so caveat there, but can't stop listening to the single "Sad Generation Happy Pictures" by Noga Erez and Fliana Boss.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay.
Noga Erez, Nogaerez, with Fliana. I think Fliana Boss might be the guest on the track. Sad like Generation Happy Pictures.
The album is called The Vandalist by the look of it.
The Vandalist, yeah. And I actually haven't made my way all the way through the album.
Okay, what sort of music are we talking about here? What style?
Oh, it's sort of hip hop, pop sort of stuff. Really well produced though. Like
nice.
It's great sort of grooves and cool layers in it.
Cool.
And then last one, because why not? Just the latest album from Fantagram. I don't know if you know Fantagram. They're a 2-piece, but I believe they bring other people together for touring and
how's that spelt, Nick?
Fantagram is PHANTOGRAM. Fantagram.
Fantagram, there they are. And particular album you're recommending?
Yeah, latest album is called Memory of a Day.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I've been listening to that and really enjoying it. Standout track for me is number 5, Attaway.
Okay.
Track number 5.
Very nice. I look forward to giving those a try, and hopefully others will too. If people have given them a try and they're a fan, maybe let us know your thoughts at askthegroovepod@gmail.com. And let me share with you. So I did 2 very different videos in the last week or so. One of them was the one where I did the deep dive into how do artists get paid between streaming versus physical. And the other one is I thought I sometimes struggle with the discovery services on the different streaming platforms because they throw you so many different options, and it's often depending on what I've been listening to lately. And for me, I listen to such a broad range of music that I don't necessarily know what I'm in the mood for when I see this discovery list. I'm like, oh, it's too much. I don't even want to start digging in that bucket. And so I had a thought, and I decided to test to see if AI companions and assistants like Gemini, Copilot, ChatGPT, if they could help us discover new music. And I'm not going to spoil the video, which is due out 2 days before the 1st of May, whatever that works out to be, at the very end of April. But in the process, I did discover some new music, some new music, I should say. And one of the artists I absolutely love, and if you haven't heard him, Nick, add this to the recommendations, even though it's not the one I was going to recommend. Have you come across Foy Vance?
How do you spell it?
Foy is his first name, Foy.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Vance, Vance. If you haven't heard of him, check out. I would recommend Wild Swan as the entry piece. Okay. You couldn't go wrong with any of them, but the Wild Swan is one of my all-time favorite albums. I could just listen to every single track on that on repeat for the rest of my life. I love it.
Wow.
It's in terms of style, it's considered alternative and indie, but he's got a blend of blues, folk, country. I've even seen it referred to as Americana, which is sort of that sort of country-ish rock type feel. And so I love that album. So I used AI to throw me some more examples of his work. And like I said, I'm not going to give away the game as to whether or not it did a great job of it. What I am going to say, though, is that there were some winners in there. And one of them that I'm really, really enjoying is a guy by the name of Marcus King. And I don't think I ever would have come across
Marcus King.
Oh, you know Marcus King?
I've seen him live. He's fantastic.
Oh, okay. So he must be known in some places, but he's not a big name performer in the general sense, because I've never come across him in all my searching before. So if you like Marcus King, you will probably like Foy Vance. And seeing that you've heard of Marcus King, I'm going to throw you a different one, which is let me get the name right, because it's going to slip my mind.
So Marcus King with his band at the Neptune about it was pre-COVID. Killer show, absolutely amazing.
Great artist. Really, I love how much blues he brings into it without going full on blues. Like it's that sort of blues rock blend. And if you like him, then you will probably also like. So I've just got to skim down to this one because I keep forgetting his name. Donovan Woods is the other one. So Donovan Woods' album called "Things Were Never Good If They're Not Good Now." That's another one that I've only had a little bit of a listen to it, but I'm really digging the sound that I've heard, and it's one of those that I'm looking forward to diving in deeper to. So I think if you like Marcus King, then Foy Vance and Donovan Woods. Was it Woods or Wood? Let me make sure. Donovan Woods, plural. They're both, I think, going to be good options for you. They're not identical to Marcus King, but they're going to be along the same kind of vein and very enjoyable.
Love it. Donovan Woods is ringing a bell for me, but I'm going to go have a listen and see what comes up.
I got him confused. There's a different Donovan, and I can't think of his surname. But that's why I wanted to go and look it up just then to make sure I gave you the right one. There's a different Donovan that is in the same vein of music, that kind of alternative indie rock sort of feel, who is also excellent. And that's who I got this Donovan Woods confused with, but they're clearly different people, and both doing some great music.
And I'm going to listen to your video about using AI to discover new music, but I just want to make sure I fully understand the premise. So you weren't using it to find more music by the same artist. You were basically saying, hey, AI, here's an artist I like, or here are a bunch of artists I like. Find me stuff that you think I will like that's similar.
So what I did was, yes. I did two different tests because I wanted to do it more than once in case the first time was a fluke or a disaster and not indicative. And so the first one I said, I really like the music by Foy Vance. Here's what I like about it. Find me more stuff that's the same. So specifically telling it what I liked and why I liked it. And I tested it across the same exact prompt I put into Copilot, ChatGPT, and Gemini, because I was also interested to see how they were different and similar. And it was interesting. I think Copilot from memory is built on ChatGPT, but they gave completely different results.
Fascinating.
Like totally different results. And then did you try different levels where, like, the first thing you said is, I like Foy Vance, give me similar artists, and then you did, I like Foy Vance, specifically these qualities, give me similar artists? Interesting. No, I didn't try that because my experience with AI has always been that if you don't give it a really good, clear prompt, you get rubbish back. Like you get stuff that's clearly an AI doing an AI thing. Whereas when you give it a really good prompt, I find you get back something that's closer to what a person would give you. But that's interesting. That might be a follow-up test and a follow-up video is what exactly is the right prompt to use to get the right results back. And what level
and
of
how
detail.
It differs too, because I feel like because so many artists straddle obviously multiple genres, but then also there's different ways of describing an artist. So Foy Vance, I think, is a male person.
Yep.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the first pivot might be just other male singer-songwriters, right? And then so maybe it just goes to the top of the list of the Billboard 100. I'm making that up, right? But versus giving it that much more detailed prompt that it can pivot on different things. So that was why I went to see how it's different.
Yeah, and that's why I went straight to the detailed prompt, because I thought it would do the same thing, where it would go, okay, male from Ireland singing alternative / indie, and so it would just throw me every male Irish artist from or even English based artist from the broader continent or country landmass, whatever it is.
Islands.
Islands, yeah, the English Isles, whatever.
British Isles, that they are.
I forget. Anyway. There is a correct combination because there's
Send
England.
us an email at Glangligly Inglebluggle.
Send it to that one, not the Ask the Grid one.
At hotmail.com.
Because there is actually a correct breakdown of which is England, which is the UK, and which is England, and which is Britain. There's 3 different ways you can break down the set of the English Isles, and I forget which one's the correct one to encompass all of them. I'm not even going to try.
Don't worry, no one knows.
No one probably does, except those that live there and are probably horrendously offended right now that I'm just messing it up. But yeah, so I expected if I just said give me more like Foy Vance, it would do male artists within the genre. What was interesting was that it clearly sent one AI, if not 2 of the AIs, down a path where it considered each of the elements that I'd identified it considered separately. And it said, well, if you're after lyricism, here's who you want to listen to. If you're after this, here's who you want to listen to. And that was really interesting. And then the other test I did at the same time as my follow-up was I said, I really like Tower of Power and Corey Wong, so I threw it 2. Mm-hmm. And the reason I like them is because of the tight, punchy, rhythmic sort of horn sections. And that test was interesting. That came back with some dubious recommendations, which I could understand where they came from, but at the same time, I was not thrilled with. So I don't know if that one was a case of me casting the net too wide, or if it got hung up on the fact that I mentioned a horn section and therefore it was just looking for which bands have horn sections. So yeah, without giving too much away, like Chicago and Earth, Wind and Fire, stuff like that came up, which to me are not a good match with Tower of Power. Like Tower of Power is funk, soul, R&B. Those others are much more in the pop space, pulling on influences from those. So it was it was
also
an
not a lot of effort, right? Like, it's interesting that I wonder if you'd prompted, if you'd included in your prompt something like, I know a lot of art, like I know a lot of bands, I know a lot of, I'm very well versed and knowledgeable in this space. So, don't give me obvious you know what I mean, like Chicago and Earth, Wind and Fire. It's like, well, you could argue that they're kind of obvious in some ways. So that'd be fascinating too, because I agree with you. The more detail you can include in your prompt, the better response you get. Yep. What I also when I'm using sort of AI tools is I tell the AI who I am, or at least how I want it to think of me when it's crafting the answer. So sometimes I will say, I am a complete novice in this area and I know nothing. Or sometimes I'll say, I am a professional in this space and I'm looking for nuance, or I'm looking for a slight, and I find that sometimes that can actually be very helpful.
That's a great tip, yeah. Because on that note, one of them came back with Lawrence. Do you know the band Lawrence?
Oh, maybe.
It's a I don't know if they're husband and wife. I think they might be. It's a band with 2 leads, a male and a female. Very much not like Tower of Power, but it was a fantastic recommendation because between Corey Wong and Tower of Power, that same theme of tight, punchy, rhythmic, like it's just music you can't help but groove to. So it was a really good recommendation because of that kind of catchiness. So I think what you're saying is a really good point. If I was to basically take off the table all of the obvious low-hanging fruit by changing the prompt a little bit, I might have gotten more things like Lawrence and less things like Chicago and Earth, Wind and Fire and Blood, Sweat and Tears. So yeah, maybe it's one to revisit in the future. But I liked it as a way of honing in on a specific album. Like if you're just digging a really particular album at that time and you just want more of it, I find Cobras or Tidal or whichever don't tend to do that I've found effectively. So just being able to type something into or even talk into a phone and have Gemini or Siri or whoever pull up some responses, I think, I don't know if Siri can do that AI-wise yet, but I think that's a possibility that I really liked. And you could do the same thing for other art forms too, music, movies, whatever. I thought it was really interesting. So it's a nice extra way to get benefit out of AI.
I'm excited to see that video, see what happens.
It's a bit of a fun one, bit different. Yeah. Hopefully people like it and it won't tank. We'll see. I think for now though, we'd better wrap this up. We've been rambling for way longer than we had planned to. Next episode, we will definitely talk about the needles, cartridges. We will talk about what to do with a USB-B or USB-C socket on the back of your device. And that's probably going to be enough for us, given how well we can expand on a single topic. And
can you build a DIY streamer if you have a Raspberry Pi 3?
Yes, let's talk about that too, because yes, you can, and yes, it will be a great match with your USB socket. But there's a few interesting things to know about the Raspberry Pi system and building an effective streamer out of it. So let's save that for next episode. As a reminder, if anyone does want to get in contact with us, throw us any ideas you want us to talk about, questions you want us to answer if we can, it's askthegroovepod@gmail.com, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next time on The Groove Pod. Or as we said last time, I think stay in the groove, trademark.
Stay in the groove. Stay groovy? No, stay in the groove.
Stay in the groove. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Groove Pod. Until next time, happy listening, and we hope you'll join us again.